to try and sort that out. Jesus, in this passage that we read, the words of what we remember as communion, the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper. Jesus invites his followers to join him in this special meal. But when he uses those words of institution, the very ones that we remember, he's drawing on a passage from Exodus. And a very particular story when Moses really seals the covenant. Last week we were talking about the old covenant, and you know how Jesus says, "This is the new covenant in my blood that was poured out for many." He's referring to a story where Moses has received the 10 Commandments from God, and he goes to the people and they basically extrapolate from that how they ought live in order to maintain this blessing that God has for them. And God has promised to them, that is the promised land. And so what he does is this very special ritual. He gets the contract and basically gets all the people to stand before him, and they've heard it, and they've heard all of these rules of what they need to do to keep up their side of the bargain. And they say, "This all sounds excellent." So Moses reads it all out to them again. And then he gets some of the young men to bring sacrifices to God. And then he takes some of the blood from the animals that they've sacrificed, and he splashes it, sprinkles it on the congregation, on all the people that have gathered there. And he splashes some of the blood on them, and then he puts the rest on the altar, which is signifying God's side of this bargain, if you like, this contract, this covenant, to seal it. Then Jesus looks at that passage and reinterprets that for his disciples in the Last Supper. And he says, "Take this bread and this cup. They are the new covenant, which is poured out for many." And then he passes around some of the bread. He takes a single loaf, breaks it, and shares it out so that each one of those, his followers, could share in that same loaf. Then he takes that cup and he passes that around so that each one buying into this new covenant could partake in this same cup. And they are doing exactly that. They're buying into this new covenant that he's promised them. But they have to be saying to themselves, well, where's the other side? If we're buying into this, where is God's side, if you like? Where is the other part of the agreement? And Jesus goes out from there to model something very specific for them. He models love and forgiveness and faithfulness, obedience even to the point of death. And he gives himself over to that. Even though he's crucified, he continues forward and is faithful and is true and is loving and forgiving to the very end. And he becomes that other side for God, on God's behalf, if you like, to seal the covenant. And it's his blood that is shed. So instead of rules of entry into a promised land, there's this lifestyle of love and service, acceptance and forgiveness that Jesus models. And that's all there is. And he leaves that for his disciples to reflect on and to look at what happened in that last week. To look at what happened when Jesus gave himself over in such radical obedience to God. And they're left to wonder, well, if he invited us to share in this covenant, maybe we have to follow and share in that life. The invitation Jesus gives them is to share that meal, the bread and the cup, and to share in the life that he lived before them, to follow in his footsteps.